Hey, there's that smile again in between those white whiskers. What's all that about, Wes?
I know. I'm kind of thumbing my nose at the CPAP machine right now and letting the white stuff come in, and that's
Oh,
we'll see if we keep it.
you're taking charge of your life. I like that.
That's
I like
right.
that.
That's right.
Yeah.
I'm a take charge kind of cat.
You got that right. Man, I like that. You just snarl at that CPAC and say, I am going to have my white whiskered face regardless.
Yeah, I want it, and thus I'm going to have it.
I like that theory. That's what we live by, right? And we live it, love it, own it, right? If you want it, you go get it. That's what we talk about all the time here on Building Wins Live, right?
That's right.
And we've got, before we get with David here, which is going to be a great conversation about just that. What do you want? You want to build a business? You want to be an entrepreneur, right? We're going to talk about what do you need to do, because you don't just get up one day and I guess I'm a business guy, right? There's a lot involved, and David's a pro and an expert on this. But you and I got some really great stuff coming, and we don't want to let it out of the bag yet, quite. But we got some just absolutely amazing things that coming up with Building Wins Live over the next, say, 5 to 6 weeks. Do we not?
We have got some live appearances. We have got some live interviews. We've got books in progress. We said that we were going to have those books done, I think, at the end of last year. Now it's looking like it's going to be the end of this year, if not the beginning of next. They are coming, guys. I promise. Not only from Randy and I individually, but there'll be a Building Wins book Dynasty on the way. But yeah,
Dynasty. What Dynasty?
a dynasty, my friend, because it's going to live way beyond us, or at least I hope it does. But
Well,
yeah, we have got some absolutely exciting stuff on the way, and that has been the theme of Building Wins from the get go. When we started off, it was just a couple little ideas that have just kind of snowballed to the point that if we wanted to stop it now, we couldn't if we wanted to.
well, exactly. And we do one of those things that's like we talk about it a lot, and I like to talk about. We talk about. We talk about. If I can stop stuttering and talk out of the box thinking, right? We don't even see a box. We just punch the crap out of the box and
Yeah, that box got
that,
obliterated a long time ago.
we don't need no box. We don't need no box. So what we don't need to do is continue talking forever, and maybe we should bring David on because he's as interesting as we find ourselves. I think he's going to be a little more interesting, don't you think?
Well, he's already done what we haven't, and that is he's a published author,
That's right.
not just in the head wannabe. He's the real McCoy.
He is, and I got two of them right here, which we're going to talk about. Look at that! What a
Sounds like
segue!
a plan.
Can you ride a segue? That was a great segue. Can you ride
It
one?
was.
Huh?
Yeah,
You
that
can ride a
was.
segue? They don't want to. All right, let's go. We're done. I
All
got
right.
nothing else. All right, cheers. David, my friend, how are you, brother?
Doing great. How about yourself?
It'd be tough to be better. I mean, I get to do what I love and love what I do every single day, so it does not get any better.
I hear that big time.
Yeah, and I say that a lot, and I used to say it to convince myself when I didn't always do that. We've all probably been, and that's I think a good segue into what we want to talk about today: building a business and being an entrepreneur. But there was times in my life where I was stuck in this job, this thing, whatever it was, that I'm just going, I hate everything about this every day, and it's incredibly awakening. And when you actually get up every day and you go, God, I'm just glad it's another day to do what I love, right? Isn't that amazing?
Yes, there is. I mean, I've been in those same shoes over the course of my life, and was so glad when I made that switch over to being the entrepreneur.
Exactly. So before we get really started, David, and in way of introduction, folks, David basically helps new entrepreneurs and business owners with their business planning, right? I mean, that's the right down to the nuts and bolts of it. But who is David? I mean, why should we be listening to you? What have you been doing? Give us a little story of your life.
Well, let's see if I can get the Reader's Digest version here.
Well, we got time. I got another 3 minutes, so go ahead. No, just kidding.
uh, I've just been one that's likes helping people. I've been doing that for many, many moons. I've enjoyed that. I like seeing them succeed. But came out of the factory during a strike, and then became an entrepreneur because I decided at that point I want to control what happens to me versus at the mercy of a business owner or a big corporation. And so I've been doing that. I spent 25 years as an insurance agent in Michigan and decided to change paths, as it were, instead of doing that. So I retired several years ago and started out on the consulting end, helping people write business plans, and take that idea from the head to paper to implementation. And I stayed doing that, plus heavily involved in the community in various levels and having a good time. I'm just, like you say, love what you do.
It is, and it's really cool when you can take the years of knowledge, right, that you've developed and learned over time, and bring that and put it on paper, or in this case, a book or two, and let people grow from your experiences. Because I mean, if people will just read the books that are available out there, watch the podcast and the seminars and the webinars and those kind of things, you don't have to go it alone, right? There's consultants, there's people like yourself, there's coaches, there's trainers. You don't have to stumble and stumble and stumble all your life, because probably if any problem, any problem you might find in the world of business, sales, whatever it is, life in general, there's 8 billion people on the planet. There's probably somebody that's went through it a time or two, right, and can help you out.
Absolutely. And that's one of the things I learned before from Jim Palmer. He says, if you're going on a journey, call somebody that's been on that journey before to find the easiest route.
Yeah. You don't need to stumble all the way, right? It's like you take that with travel. If you're gonna go to Southern Cal or to the Napa Valley in California, in the area where one of our mutual friends and also wrote the foreword to at least one of your books, Ben Gay III, lives, but you get out in that general part of the world, it probably would be helpful to talk to somebody that's been there a number of times as opposed to somebody that hadn't been there, right? And that's exactly what I think you're saying.
Yeah, it's and that's one of the things that I feel that I bring to the people I work with is I'm bringing 35 years of education, trials, tribulations, whatever you want to call it, and helping them they don't have to make the same mistakes I did. And,
right.
We're going to save you a lot of time and headache, unless you got 35 years to learn it.
Yeah, I don't know if I got 35 years left, so I need to start learning. But if I do, I don't want to spend it all learning and stumbling, right?
There you go.
But you're exactly right. And I found it's amazing once you open up your mind and your heart, I guess, to I don't know it all. Even if I know a lot, I still don't know half of what I think I know. And so when you communicate with people like yourselves, like our producer buddy, producer director pal buddy, and occasional bodyguard, I always like to say that, Wes, and people like Ben Gay III, and people like so many people that we all know together, I mean, it never ends the amount of experience that you can get and avoid the mistakes, right? And I think that's what we're going to talk about today. So this book right here, From the Bottom Up, The Ultimate Guide for Business Planning and Profitability, right there, a little light glare, but that is, I just got done reading that about 2 days ago. Thank you for sending me a couple of autographed copies on a couple of your books. I started reading this book because I wanted to, well, 3 reasons. A, it looked very interesting to me. B, I wanted to prepare for our chat today. And C, I needed another read anyways for my 75 Hard program that I'm on, which requires me to read at least 10 pages a day, which is like minor. I read more than that anyways, but it was a great opportunity. And I mean, I flew through this book. It's an easy read. It's a great read. So if you don't mind, David, walk us through what somebody's going to get. Oh, so I don't have to hold it up. Wes has got it up there. What do people going to get when they buy this book? Because I think they should. It's very well written and you can take it chapter by chapter and start implementing. That's the way I love the way you wrote this. So I'm going to be quiet for like 32 seconds and let you talk.
Well, thanks on that. It was one of those labors of love that it came about when I was in the insurance world. Our corporate company says we want every agency to submit a business plan. And I had a couple of the new agents that said, I don't know how to do this. What do I do? Well, I had a piece here and a piece there, and all I had to do was go boom, and mine was done. So after a 2-hour conversation with these two, they both came out in unison, you need to teach this. Well, my light bulb went off and the book was born, but I like simplicity. Mm-hmm. And so one of my goals when I wrote this was I wanted educational, informative, without big words like delicatessen.
Yeah, that's a hard one. I can't spell it, so
Oh
don't
yeah,
ask me.
that's what one of my college professors. That was one of his favorite sayings. But I wanted something that he could easily understand, and so I just took what each section was, built it out, and described it. Gave some ideas where to find the information, and some templates in through there, and just some guidance along the way to make it user friendly. I want that to kind of be the resource document that you pull off the shelf when you got to do this.
Right. And you just hit a key word I just made a note of. I'm not when I'm writing, I'm not doing crossword puzzles because they bore me, just so you wondered. But simplicity, right? Don't we as entrepreneurs, as business owners, tend to overcomplicate things more than they need to be? Isn't business on the big scale of things, $1 trillion corporations are pretty complicated. But mom and pop businesses, my rep agency that I run, life is not that complicated if we don't make it that. Is that a fair statement?
I think that's very fair because it's the basics, and once you master those, you can build in any direction that you want to go. And I think that's just so important that people understand it. It's not some where you have to have a PhD in something to do what we do.
Right. Well, and Lard, it's if we zero in on the fact that it's people serving people, no matter what level it is, whether we're B2B or P2P, or I think everything's P2P, everything's people to people, outside of maybe some large government projects, I suppose, or large multi-billion-dollar deals, which is all sealed bid period. But I think all deals, regardless, are still people to people. There's a business owner or a salesperson and a business owner or a buyer that some point or another, the two of you have to put that deal together, right? And there has to be the trust and the confidence and the reasonable belief that you're going to be able to make this deal work together. So I think in a lot of those cases, that overcomplication, it just gets in the way of putting a deal together, which is, at the end of the day, if it's a good deal and it makes sense for both of us, isn't that what we want to get to?
Oh yeah. I mean, that was one of the things. Even when I was in the insurance business, I had people colleagues that would put all these big numbers together and have this 20-page proposal. I go in there with a legal pad and draw it out in front of them, and I walk away with a sale. But it's I just that KISS method. Keep it simple, and it's easy to understand that way. There's no questions. Well, what's in there? And I just feel that that's just the way I've always enjoyed doing business. And yeah, I mean, it's all about sitting down nose to nose and having a discussion.
Well, it is, and one of the keys there is, as you say, that is setting down, listening, and boy, that's a key one, right? It is to talk less, and I talk a lot, but talk less and listen more, right? Because most of the times, and I'm swinging this back to the sales world a little bit right now because that's really where I come from. Customers will tell you all day long exactly how to sell them.
Mm-hmm.
And I hate to use the word sell because my approach on selling is, like a lot of people that you and I both know, is we're not selling anybody anything. We're helping them get what they want or need. A little bit of an off play of Zig, right? But is that we're if we listen and we ask questions, we take notes, and we come back with a plan that works, we're probably going to win that deal in most cases. And I think too many times we get off into wanting to tell our story because we want to tell our story or whatever it is we want to do. And maybe the story is kind of the customer story is a little more important, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's God gave us the 2 ears for a reason. Give you an example of that. I'm mentoring new business owners in Northwest Ohio right now through the program with several chambers.
Mm-hmm.
And I was meeting with one of my folks, and we're sitting there at a restaurant, and I'm listening to her describe her business. And then when we got all done on the way out, lady walked out right in front of me and turned around and says, I've never seen people listen like you did to her. I didn't hear what you were saying, but your eyes were focused on her and what she was saying. I'll tell you what, I kind of floated all the way home to get a compliment like that.
Exactly. Well, exactly. And it's good to confirm that what you're doing is right sometimes, right? And that you're 100% right. That's probably one of the most important things we can do in the world of business, whether we're in selling, but let's face it, and I think you'll agree, whatever other stage you are in the business, whether you're the business owner or the stock boy putting things on the shelf, the secretary, whatever. We're all in sales every day, right? Everything we do is involved with sales, and anybody that doesn't buy that, I just disagree. I think we're always selling. Uh, like for example, if you're working putting stock away at a hardware store, and somebody walks in and they're looking around and they seem confused, you may not be the person that really knows, but you can ask, you can engage. Hey, how you doing? What are you looking for? I'm looking for whatever. Say, look, hey, I'm not the guy, but I'll be right back. I'll go get the lady, the guy, the whoever that can come help you, right? So it's that we're always selling. So I think that's a key to remember is sales equals listen a lot and talk only when necessary, right?
Yep. And if people forget that, they talk themselves out of that sale because they don't want to listen.
Oh, I've been in those scenarios before, way back early in my career, before I even thought I knew anything, and recognized that one time I was with an owner of a small company, and they just really needed the business, and there was a discussion between, do we take 2 at this deal, or do we just give them a sample? So it was like 2 or 4. That was the deal. 2 is a price, 4 is a price. And the 2 owners are back and forth. And I knew early on that I'm getting either 2 or 4. I've already won something, right? So I'm very quiet because I figured that out even before I knew what I knew. This owner in his aggressiveness finally goes, well, tell you what, I know it's hard for you to decide, so why don't we just send you in a display for free, put it on the floor, and see what people think. I'm going, are you kidding me? You bought that sale back, right? Because you had 2, maybe had 4, but now you got 0 and you gave it away on top of it, right? All because you couldn't just sit there in that uncomfortable silence, right? Because when we're in front of people, silence is uncomfortable to us, right? And I think we got to learn that that's okay. There's a time where I got 20 minutes if you want to sit here, right? You guys argue this out, and I'm going to win either way. So I think that's a really important thing. Back to your original point.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's so many times it's the first one to talk loses, and it's, I learned that one the hard way as well. It's when I first came out of the factory and into sales, I said, man, this is a switch. But yeah, it's tell your story and shut up.
There you go. I like that. So tell us a couple things about this book first, from the bottom up, The Ultimate Guide for Business Planning and Profitability. Wes has got it up there. What are people going to learn about this book? Because it's a very easy read. And like you said, there's a lot of templates. It's almost this is more simplistic than it really is, but it's almost a plug and play to some degree, isn't it?
It is. And that was my first attempt at writing. But like I say, I wanted something that was just going to be easy that anybody can figure out. Because not all entrepreneurs or business owners are college educated, and so that was one of the biggest things I hear. I read this book, but I'm more confused now than I was when I started it.
Right.
So they were telling me, I need something simple, and that's went back in. I said, okay, this is what it is. This is how I understand, and so that's the way I wrote it. And I've had a lot of people that have used this in their business plan, and they say that's what got me through, because I could understand what you were trying to say in relating the stories back to my own personal life that everybody deals with in one form or another.
Right. So before we jump to this next book, in the words of David, why is a business plan so important, and why is it that we need to do that before $1's invested, probably, right?
Well, absolutely. One of the things that I learned with the business plan is that's your roadmap. We just talked about traveling here a few minutes ago, and most time you've got a map that you're following. Well, now it's GPS. I'm old school. I still have a door pocket full of maps.
Well, that works.
Well, yeah. I mean, I like those sometimes better than the GPS, but it gives you something to follow and see if you're on course. Things pop up from day to day that we would be off track. Mm-hmm. We're bombarded by about 5,000 marketing messages a day, and you put that in coming into here along with life. If you got a family and kids, those things are constant. And I don't know about, most people, but if I had my plan in my head, it wouldn't be there because there's so many things filling it up.
Hmm.
And we tend to do more when it's in writing.
Right.
You write it down, things will happen. And that was one of the things that they told me when I started in the insurance is write out what you want, what your goals are, then how are you going to do it? And that's all the plan is. It doesn't have to be a novel.
Right.
I've seen them on cocktail napkins. Wouldn't recommend it, but I've seen it.
well, I've usually used my cocktail napkins to wipe up the mess I made. So,
Yeah.
well, a thought you just said there is, and we've all talked about it and we've heard it a million different ways and said better than I'll say it. But if without action, it's literally a daydream, right? It's not going to happen if you don't take some action. But we want to take action on some common sense approach before we start. But speak to that a little bit, because a lot of people, I think, also they're the thinker, right? The guy that sits on the little, we know the thinker is, right? And he thinks and thinks and thinks and thinks, and it's 20 years later, and it's still this great, brilliant idea, but 27 other people have already blasted ahead of him because they're doers, right? So you got to find that right combination between the thinker up front. But at some point, don't you just have to get down off that little pedestal, shake your head a little bit, and go take some action?
Well, absolutely. And that's writing it out is an action step that you're already working towards. So you've taken the first step. And one of the things that I do now and some of the mentoring that I do with not only through these chamber programs, but with clients of my own, is I help them when we get all done with their plan. We'll start laying out the steps that need to be taken to implement it. Mm-hmm. So we're going to vet that idea out in your head and say, right, am I willing to invest? And then is my family on board?
Perfect. Yeah.
My wife is my biggest cheerleader and supporter and boot trainer because I get that boot a few times when I start doing something stupid.
Well, I get that a lot. I got a sore butt most of the time.
Well, yeah, that's it. And so just making sure we start with that with our discussions and making sure that, one, they've given us enough thought, because even though you don't need a lot of money to start a business, you still have some investment to get everything rolling. Mm-hmm. And so I want to make sure that, you've got those funds, your family's on board, because, some of these things that I've heard, well, I just took $5,000 out of the savings and now my wife is divorcing me. That would be me if I did that without some confirmation.
Yeah, that's less than perfect.
Yeah, and so we walk all the way through that, kind of say, hey, who are you looking at dealing with this? We go back to some of Dan Kennedy's stuff. Why are you doing it? Who's your ideal customer? Where are you going to reach them? And pull this out and put it together before we even spend a nickel. Because I have that conversation when I start working with people before we do anything. And if they're not on board with that, I won't take the money. It's just my way I do business. And one of the things that when I wrote this book is because questions come up, but at the end of every chapter is my email. So you don't have to go look it up. You've got my email address. Oh, what's he mean by that? Well, it's easy. Email me. I just want to make sure that people that are investing their time and energy into starting a business, that they're comfortable doing it.
Yeah, perfect. I just made another note here: plan versus adapt. I'm a big believer in being an adapter. A lot of things that I'm doing today, I wasn't doing 3 years ago, 4 years ago. So planning's super important. We've talked about that a little bit, but sometimes you have to adapt along the way, because whatever you planned I think there's an old military axiom that perfect plans are perfect until the bullets start flying, right? So all good plans, you got to start with it, think it through, be as trusting in that plan as you can. But the first day you open business, you probably better be prepared to adapt, right? Because nothing day one is probably going to go exactly by this plan, right? So you've got to. So do you believe you've got to be adaptable, or do you have to just stay the plan for a period of time, regardless of what happens?
Well, things change on the fly, and I think you have to be flexible, whatever you do. There's one of the things I've learned in my volunteer efforts. Plan, do, assess, and do it again.
Hmm.
Because what you thought was the right thing to do, well, that didn't work just right. Why aren't people coming in? And so we got to adjust to figure out, let's make this way and try that. But we don't know that if we don't have something to gauge it against. And that's the plan. It's just a guide framework, but it's meant to be changed.
Exactly. And sometimes, changing on the fly quickly, and other times you may want to give it a little more time. But that comes back to you and your personal commitment, involvement, and being paying attention to what's going on, right? Because sometimes you could quit too early this process because you barely gave it time. There's other times where you're going, okay, this proved out pretty quickly that if I open a coffee shop and I thought it'd be a great plan with employees to open it at 8:30, well, that's kind of a bad plan because when do people go buy coffee? It's more like 6:30, right?
Mhm.
So you need to adapt some of those things quickly. But no, I think that is exactly the way I see it. One quick thing before we talk a few minutes on your other book here, marketing. Things have changed dramatically over the last several years, right? I'm an old school road warrior. That's been my original mantra, my original way to go to bat every day. Changed completely in the last 3 or 4 years to where I've become much more of a hybrid version, using all the stuff like we're doing today in videos and marketing via social media. What's the importance of marketing? Because you don't just open the door, hang your shingle out, stick an ad in the classifieds, and say, "Hey, Dan's here, ready to sell widgets," right? Yeah, because that's going to be a short run unless you got a lot of money, right?
Well, unfortunately, too many people still believe that.
Yeah.
I see shops come in our local town, and next thing you know, they're closed. Well, I didn't see anything from them, but it is marketing is just making you. It brings down awareness, and it's getting people to know, like, and trust you, and that's the easiest way to do it. I'm like you, I spent a lot of time in my career early on knocking doors. When I started in the insurance, the manager that I had to report to says, "Here's a book of prospects." It was the phone book. He said, "I think you better start with the D's because the last guy ended in C."
Great plan.
We used to call it dialing for dollars.
Mhm.
You sit there on the phone, that's for periods of time. But now it's a matter of between the social media stuff that's out there. I still believe in a combination, like you said, the hybrid method. There's nothing like some snail mail out there. I just had this conversation yesterday with a client or Monday, say, this is a way to do that. And she was looking about getting some information into some of these athletic directors. And I said, well, you have one that you're working with, do a video, send it through. And it says, in the old days, we used to send a CD or a DVD with it along in a box with a coffee cup and a snack.
Yep.
But it's just making sure that you're top of mind when they're ready to buy.
Exactly. Always building the brand, right? The brand of the brand of the business, the brand of the product, and the personal brand, right? I'm a big believer in building that personal brand. Because people, like you said a minute ago, people buy who they like and trust, right? And I think that you got to build that personal brand, even if it's inside your business. If you're the business owner, they don't want to buy. They may want to buy, but buying from David Brown's widget factory, okay, there's a lot of widget factories, but they want to buy from David Brown, this guy that I like, this guy that I trust, this guy that I just think is a good guy, right? So it's important to build that personal brand, especially we're talking today more from the aspect of the business owner. I happen to talk quite a bit about the fact that I think you need to build that brand if you're a company sales guy working for a company. And in my case, I own my own rep agency, right? So I am branding myself all the time. But you can do that even if you're a salesperson for a company. You're building that brand of David, and I'm a trustworthy guy. I'm a guy you're going to like, a guy you can trust, a guy that's going to be here for you, right? So I think that's important in that whole marketing segment, right?
Well, it is. When I go back to the insurance because there's so many examples in there after 25 years. I had a friend, a guy who became a good friend, move into Monroe, where we're at. And he says, this is the hardest nut to crack. He says, people don't know who their companies are. They know that they bought it from Dave or they bought it from Bill. They couldn't tell you what the company was, but they could tell you who they bought it from.
Exactly.
And, it goes right back to it. It's because of the work that we've done to build that rapport with people.
Exactly. So let's switch gears quick because you've been very generous with your time. But another book that I just started to read, Journeys to Success, incredible book with a few other authors, forwarded again by a great friend of both of ours and Wes's, Ben Gay III. Tell us a little bit about this book because I'm just getting into it, and it's really, really good. And give us a quick overview of that book, if you don't mind, as we kind of wind down here.
All right. Well, I was introduced to Napoleon Hill back when I went into started interviewing for the insurance. The gentleman that hired me says he gave me a book on insurance and Think and Grow Rich. He says, read this, follow it, and you're going to be fine. And so at that point, I became a fan after reading that, and I still read it every year. It's one of the books that I want to read every year because, when you're ready for something, it'll appear.
Right.
And so each time I take additional information out, but over the years, I got to know other people that were big fans. And Tom Cunningham, who spearheaded that project, I got to do a little work with Tom. I was on his podcast. He says, hey, I'm putting together books about how those 17 success principles affected your life. Are you in? I says, yep, I'm in. Didn't ask any more questions. I'm in.
Right.
And so Tom and went to work and with everybody else that he had on board at that time, and we recruited 21 different authors, people that believed in the success. Well, this was the original book, and it talks about what people went through in their lives based on those principles. And I think there's 9 books in that series before Tom passed. He had different groups, females, baby boom or not baby or millennials, and he just had it all broken down to different characters. But there's so many people that followed Dr. Hill's teachings, and then when I had an opportunity when I met Ben, our Ben Gay there, he just brought it all to life. And so it's just been interesting to see what people went through because we can learn from everybody's story.
Exactly. Yes, and Dr. Hill's story is as amazing as it gets, and I never tire of listening to Ben tell stories about Dr. Hill and Zig and Earl Nightingale, and it goes on and on and on forever, right? Yeah, I every time I talk to him, I come away incredibly smarter than I went in. Not that that's not a long journey, but I do become better every time. So, well, listen, as we wind down, we're running across the bottom how people can get a hold of you. I assume you're taking clients if somebody's interested. That would be awesome. And as we kind of wind down, Wes always reminds me, usually sooner or later, yeah, there we go. Look at that. Should ask questions. What did we miss today that as we finish out that you'd like to say to everybody?
Well, I think we've covered a lot of it. And I just want to make an offer to everybody that takes that from the bottom up in its expanded version now. And you can go onto my website right on the homepage, and this create a business plan that'll work for you is a 147-page workbook. Wow. And it's free on the website. You just put your name and email in there and download it. But that will take you through everything that we talked about in a business plan. And it's got even a little more detail. I've learned in 15 years since I wrote, or 12 years since I wrote from the bottom up. But that's just a little bit about what I'm doing to help people, because it does no good to have it up here unless it's in people's hands. And so that was my way of making that. And you'll see a QR code on the cover. That's just a special message I recorded for people that why it's important to walk through the business plan. But it's a great opportunity for people to start without investing any money and get it going.
Sure. Perfect. Well, hey folks, I recommend you do that because it's really, really good stuff. Both books, recommend them both. Buy them. I recommend them. David, thank you, my friend. It's a pleasure. And when I'm in Monroe or south thereof, coffee's on me. How's that?
Not a problem. I look forward to it.
All right.
I'll be up your direction here next month, and so who knows what'll happen.
Hey, if you call ahead, I just might. If there's coffee involved, I just might be.
There's always coffee involved. I mainline that stuff.
Oh, then we're on the same page. So we'll just go in and say, give us a couple gallons, and we'll bang ideas off of each other for an hour or two.
I get it in an IV drip, so we're happy.
That's perfect. That's perfect. All right,
well, I
David.
appreciate the invite and the opportunity to share some information with your listeners.
You got it. My pleasure. Appreciate it, my brother. Cheers.
Be good.
All right, you too. I can't, but I'll try.
Well, don't get caught.
That's the best we can do. I won't get caught. I'm quick. All right. Thank you, David. Appreciate it. There you go, my friends. David Brown. Check out his books. Throw them up one more time. They really, really are good. And take to heart some of the things he talked about. If you're going to start a business, you got to plan. And there's so many people in today's world with, as I mentioned earlier, podcasts, webinars, all those kind of things, speeches, talks, trade shows. Take all those in and learn, because you don't have to go it alone. That's it. I have got to get out of here because we are racking and stacking and rocking and rolling today. So my buddy Wes is going to pop me out of here in just a second. But remember, live it, love it, own it. Love what you do and do what you love. And this is really important. Ready? Make today your best day ever. Until tomorrow. Cheers, my friends.